We are live. This is the market update. Silver goes up, Bitcoin dumps, stocks dump, and every bond market dumps, even when bonds should do well when stocks are lower. What's up with that? Well, we will tell you. We will tell you all about it. We will explain to you why silver has been going higher, because things are getting more and more and more obvious as to why precious metals have an insatiable bid. Something is wrong out there. We are finding out what that is. Patreon knows about it. Free, middle, platinum. Everybody knows. Updated last night. The Bitcoin dump. The best case for Bitcoin, we'll talk about it. The worst case for Bitcoin, we'll talk about it. And then we'll talk about something else. The fact that I'm over it. 1 year ago, we all got rugged by the president of the United States. He sold over the top of us, and now we are still reeling. Now, some things I like and some things I don't, but we are going to talk about the Director meme coin. It's time to get away from the people who can push the market around and for us to start pushing back. And this little $2 million meme coin could be a way to do that. It could do okay if the market does poorly, because they've got control of the supply. We'll roll the dice. We'll look at the chart and we'll see. But I'm willing to take a lot more risk on a conviction play on that than I was, say, 2 weeks ago, after seeing this Bank of Japan nightmare displayed for us, like, in full view. Like, absolutely frightening. Frightening. For example, I haven't seen what we saw last night in the Japanese government bond market since a panic rate hike by the Fed in 1994, where you had long-term government bonds moving 1/4 of a point or 25 basis points in yield. Now, I know that doesn't mean anything to you. It will when we're done. But the fact of the matter is, there is a cascade of selling in bonds that could start in Japan, move over to the U.S. We'll talk about what all that means. First, I want you to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. If you like these new late night times, please feel free to leave a comment down below. That helps me help you. Also, if you look down below or in the QR codes, we have a Patreon membership area where you can get deep research, PowerPoint slides, and exclusive videos. We have a middle tier and an $88 tier, and debuting tomorrow morning, not debuting, but the latest update from the YouTube member area will be on at 8 a.m. Central Time, 9 a.m. Eastern, starting tomorrow. Okay, we will get with Toby and get into altcoin picks, get into whether or not Bitcoin is going to stay here or go to 70. That will be tomorrow. I will give you a preview, some of the work, along with live TA. So you don't want to miss live TA, particularly after a complete mess like today. And we're welcoming all the Spartans and all the YouTube members watching the show today. All right. Why is Bitcoin down and why is silver up? That's the question. Silver is up because for every 1 ounce of silver that exists, there's 250 paper ounces of silver that have been created in financial markets to satisfy investment demand. So if 250 people have little tickets and they want to take delivery of silver, so 250 ounces of silver go to take delivery and there's only 1 ounce, what happens? You have a monster short squeeze, which is what's going on in silver right now. Now, this is exacerbated by a move in gold and by the realization that guys like Dalio, even though, it's been easy to make fun of him, and in some ways over the last couple of years, The sovereign debt reckoning is here. And Patreon Platinum has a roadmap, but here's a hint as to what's really happening. Japanese government bonds collapsed last night. Japanese banks and insurance companies are looking at their financial year end at the end of March. Now, what these large institutions are going to have to do is dump what's not working, which is Japanese government bonds, and they may have to dump what kind of is working or is stable, which is our bonds, U.S. bonds. So track me here. The Japanese are selling their bonds and our bonds, so safe to say they're not buying our bonds. All right. And we have to sell or issue 11 trillion throughout the year. So one of the biggest buyers of our debt is selling it because they've got their own problems. So where exactly are all these $11 trillion in bonds going to go this year? Where's that going? They can't get the Clarity Act done. And the only thing that they're talking about on the news is Greenland. I mean, are U.S. volunteer soldiers really going to attack NATO troops? Well, I don't know what the answer is to that, but that's not the world's biggest problem, folks. I can tell you that right now. Everyone's talking about it. It's all over the news. Another misdirection play by the director who wants you looking somewhere else while some sleight of hand takes place. I'm serious. This situation with these government bond markets, particularly headed into an eclipse in mid-February, it couldn't be more serious for legacy. Magnificent Seven stocks are getting monkey hammered ahead of their earnings coming out, plus or minus 10 days from now. I think Netflix was already out today. There's no reason to own those stocks. So if you have bonds in trouble, that can spill over into stocks. And of course, as you might suspect, crypto, the little redheaded stepchild of all these markets, if they're mooning metals and that's sucking up all the capital and they're selling all these other assets, crypto gets scared out of the water and you wake up and Bitcoin's down 4%. And I don't know about you, but I'm furious. You know, a year ago, we were promised the new age of crypto. Crypto was going to be a growth industry. You were going to have the made in America crypto sector. And now we have geopolitical distractions and sovereign insolvency. Right? This is another reason, like I said, why I'm willing to go Bitcoin. I'm going to explain silver, but I'm also willing to go director because there has to be a protest coin. There has to be a protest coin against some of this insane manipulation. And I have to be honest with you. If Bitcoin actually does tank again, I actually think that that's going to be people who are hitting it to buy it. Because when the catch-up trade inevitably happens, this is everything Satoshi Nakamoto ever dreamed of. The big sovereign blow up in real time. And I don't think anyone's paying attention. I think people are paying attention to silver. So without further ado, let's go to the silver chart and just get straight to the bottom line, right? So here's the DeMark work in silver. By the way, we want to welcome all our friends watching on the YouTube Shorts feed and TikTok. Right now, we have silver with 2 DeMark topping signals. So by all accounts, silver should be in for a breather or the kind of correction you saw in Monero. Obviously, you can see that that's not happening. It's not happening, right? Silver actually went up today. It didn't hold above 95, but silver isn't budging. Now, what is the point of this chart? So silver should go down. It should correct. What happens if it doesn't? What happens if it doesn't? Okay, well, I can answer that question too. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Fibonacci extension work in silver. to try to develop a silver price prediction and upside target in the event that the DeMark work does not act as a topping signal. In other words, what happens if silver gets completely out of hand? Because I think we would be irresponsible if we weren't doing this kind of math right now. Wrong indicator. Stay with me. So we're going to use something called Fibonacci extension math, which is basically to say, okay, here's a trend from 28 to 50. And what happens if this extends past 96? So note, this Fibonacci system, which I'm about to screen share. So I'll draw it again. Eagle King just joined the stream, by the way, so we won't have these problems anymore. Okay, so you connect the low at 17 to the high at 54, and then let the Fibonacci lines draw themselves. You can see there's a dark blue line here at 96. So 96 is a big deal. Silver, big deal. Because, you know, what you can see down here at 70, that was another one of these fib extension levels. When silver broke 70, it came back down and sat right on top of it and then went straight to 96. Now, 96 is resistance, and, you know, there's a negative DeMark work and everybody's bullish. So, okay, maybe it comes off, but look, there's a lot of time between now and the eclipse. So if you break 96 and you come back and retest it, the next fib number is at 147. Demand destruction in silver is at 125. Now, naturally, just like altcoins, it's easy to look at silver and say, okay, yeah, it's going to 100. Everyone thinks that now, you know, and then everyone's going to have to one up everyone else. And if silver goes to 147, that would be on par with some of the crazy things we've seen in commodities, like when oil went to 150, right? You can get these things to go way beyond where they normally should. Now, if silver breaks 96 and goes to 150, what's the rest of the world look like again? In other words, the reason precious metals are going up has now become obvious. It's become obvious, right? It has to do with a sovereign debt meltdown, right? The Japanese have obviously lost all control. They may have more selling in front of year end, and I don't know what this means for our bonds unless the Fed steps in a very big way. So I'm looking at this going, we have two choices. We can maybe hide in Bitcoin. We can buy the dip in privacy. So if Bitcoin holds, I mean, Monero went to 800 and then went back to its 50-day moving average. You know, there's a lot of reason to say that this is an opportunity, right? Like if they get emotional in silver, this may allow for crypto people to be like, hey, I can pick up Monero on the 50-day moving average. Look at this. You know, I would have thought Monero would have been gone for 1,000. Then Monero turned around and washed out the entire year. If you go over here, right, you start looking at Monero and even Bitcoin, right? They're washing out the whole year. 2 more days left, you know, like maybe 8 more hours, excuse me. This is a 4-hour chart. Bitcoin is doing the same thing. They wiped out the year. They wiped out the year in like 2 days, thanks to our friends from Japan. So what do you like? Well, you gotta like Bitcoin. Think. The risk is Bitcoin goes to 75. That's like the deep risk. That's as if you have NASDAQ come unglued, which can happen, right? We should not kid ourselves as to what happens if people start selling U.S. treasuries. Like the Japanese government bond market, okay. But this became a mess when it spilled over into our market. Okay. So obviously we're going to be keeping an eye on the U.S. government bond market. What I do for that is to look at ZB. ZB is the long bond futures contract. It's kind of easier, I think, for people to keep track of instead of yield. Okay. And obviously you can see what this thing did today at the 50-day moving average when it rejected it and just went straight down. And if you're on the subject, and this is when I became a director, to be honest with you, is when I witnessed this failed rally in Bitcoin above the 50-day moving average. Like, I still think you got a lot of support on this Gann line at 85, but you know, this fake out at the 50-day, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I can't sugarcoat this. There's a failed rally at the 50-day. There's a big failed rally at the 50-day. And there's another one. There's two of them. Now, I was kind of figuring they would be smaller, that it wouldn't be such an issue. Maybe that's true. I mean, Bitcoin in the 80s still feels really cheap to me. But truth be told, I'm tired of getting pushed around. And the protest on that is DIRECTOR, as far as I'm concerned. We'll go into that more later. Okay, but, you know, I'm in the mood. I'm in the mood to buy dips and things I like, and I'm in the mood to push back, because one guy said it perfectly. He's like, the people of Japan deserve better. The people of the United States and crypto holders deserve better leadership than what we're getting right now. We're getting geopolitical theater to distract away from that law enforcement issue involving files. Right? 1 minute, you know, we're doing that, and the next minute, you know, we're fighting the Danish army. I understand the strategic importance of Greenland. What I also understand is the need to keep people distracted. But I don't think you're going to be able to ignore this, because you cannot ignore silver. You cannot ignore gold. You cannot ignore what's going on here, because unfortunately, poor crypto is caught in this to the point where, you know, you have Peter Schiff on the tape, the gold guy, talking about very seriously heavy apocalyptic stuff. And I hate to say this, but he's right. Now, again, in Patreon Platinum, we do provide the bad news and the good news. I think if you look at them together, it works well. But you do need to understand what happened today, why it happened, and why from this point out, like, silver has been a squeeze about industrial metals and about people taking delivery. And I think once you start to see silver above 100, I think that's when you have monetary panic. Like, the move from 70 to 100 has been about delivery. The move from 100 to 150 or whatever it is about panic. Now, is that panic on the tape right this second? No. Do you have to freak out in Bitcoin? And Bitcoin's still at 89, 88, 90. I mean, it's been here for 5 months. It's not like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. It really isn't. What I wish it would be the end of suppression and ideological manipulation, meaning they want you to think this is no good, when I don't agree with that at all, especially when you see the wipeout, in privacy. Continuing the case for this DIRECTOR coin. So I'll go into that in just a second. But I did see some sort of comical thing that the orange man signed into law that Wall Street firms can no longer buy, like, single-family U.S. housing. Well, too late for that, bro. They've been buying it for 10 years. They own it all. Do you know what I'm saying? They own it all. You need to change the tax law so that they're incentivized to dump them, not just stop buying them. So, you know, I understand that, you know, there's a lot of likable things about this guy, especially when you look at, like, things like the Monroe Doctrine, which are outside of the crypto sphere. But when are we going to get a break? We're not getting a break, you know, and they're looking to improve housing, and mortgage rates are going to start rising if this continues. Now, eventually, folks, like I said earlier, this is an absolute boom for Bitcoin, going someplace to happen. You just have to survive until the eclipse, which makes me want to roll my eyes and hide under my desk. I mean, it's never a good idea to get all negative at a low, especially since you're inside of a range. And I'm really not negative because I think, even if Bitcoin goes down, Bitcoin is going to come screaming back, just like it did with Silicon Valley, which is probably a good time to bring up at least a hint of what we talked about in Patreon Platinum, which is simply this. In 2023, U.S. interest rates went up to the point where a bank broke. Silicon Valley Bank broke, and then they had to be bailed out or liquidated. Bitcoin went down for like 5 days and then turned around, and there were like 4 or 5 God candles in 6 weeks on the upside. And I think that's going to happen again. It's just a question of how frightening does this sovereign debt thing occur? Like, for example, are we buying Greenland? If so, where are we getting that money from? So we got to take it by force or buy it. Okay. Well, the buyer for those bonds is who exactly? Now, this makes a great case for Bitcoin long term. It makes a great case for a chunky summer rally and a parabolic starting in October. Other guys have a sort of more down in the mouth view with October being the low. Those are the 4-year cycle guys. I like to think if Bitcoin holds above 80, that's a really, really good sign. But I have to tell you something. I'm being straight with you. I'm tired of getting pushed around. I'm tired of waking up and watching crypto be this like little boat in the water. And here's my pushback idea. So, director, just so you know, and I brought this up casually, and now I'm getting very uncasual about it. This is from a Jim Carrey movie a long time ago. A serious Jim Carrey movie where this individual here puts Jim Carrey in a TV show for 10,000 days. And Jim Carrey starts figuring out that his whole life is a lie. Now, before I get going, the director people are going to lose their minds if I don't point out that the Twitter handle is Director on Sol. They have a blue check, and this is the contract address. I don't give out contract addresses, but Director on Sol is the Twitter handle. Now, this guy puts Jim Carrey in a simulation, and everything is a lie. His wife, his best friend is looking at him and saying, "I'm not lying to you," when he is. This guy, the director, is talking into the earpiece of the other characters. It's actually scary. But you know what? This kind of reminds me of my life, our life, right? We wake up, the Japanese government bond market, all these leaders have made all these decisions, and we're trying to make sound investments, and we're getting wiped out because someone's pushing us around, not to mention the 1-year anniversary of, the Orange Man rug. I've had it. So it's time to see if there's any such thing as a protest coin. Like, who is the director? And even if the market doesn't trade rate, I'm starting to wonder if this supply dynamic, which we introduced, which I'll talk about, in other words, the market trades terrible, but this little coin with a 2 million market cap has managed to hold the 62% retracement of this pop that they got when they got control of the supply. Now, of course, with any trade, the risk to the view is, can they control the supply? That's all that matters in meme coins. Really, it's all that matters in crypto, right? The community has got control of the supply in Director, as I'm told. Now, these things can go bad. White Whale was the sequel to Pippin, this community-controlled sort of like limit the supply group until it went all the way up and all the way back down again. And this is what can happen. This is what can happen. However, in this particular instance, White Whale is just a cartoon character, whereas the director has meaning, and it happens to have meaning that yours truly assigned to it. So Toby says when Bitcoin gets boring, people look at highly speculative trades with meme coins. They can and will go to zero. You can lose everything that you put in. So be advised. Don't come back to me and say, Bill, you discussed it at 2 million and it went to 800,000. You can have extreme volatility in these things. However, the market cap of things like Pippin and White Whale were stratospheric. Some of it was like they were at hundreds of millions in valuation. And I think all you need is one October 10th style incident in crypto off this Bank of Japan thing for people to say enough is enough. There's 3 enough is enough trade. The obvious one is Bitcoin on a dip somewhere in the 80s. I guess if you get 70s, that's Christmas. It's not going to feel like it, but it is. And then there's these privacy coins that have washed out the whole month of January. In other words, everybody FOMO'd in justifiably, and then there's this huge dip. We're going to be discussing more privacy coins tomorrow in the YouTube member podcast. Toby's got a whole list, got a PowerPoint, got the whole thing all set up of what we want to BTFD in privacy, because this is Toby's year for privacy. It's not just Toby's year, it's Galaxy Digital's as well. Galaxy Digital thinks privacy market cap is going to 100 billion. Right now, it's probably at sub 20, 18 maybe. I mean, you have massive upside there. And then there's this, high beta play that you put a 1 to 2% allocation, not investment advice, not the rent, right? Just literally betting that at some point people go, enough. I've been rugged, sold over the top, promised everything. And now we're talking about Greenland instead of strategic Bitcoin reserve. Or we're talking about Greenland when we have a government bond crisis that affects your lives and the lives of the people in Japan. There's never been a better case for crypto, no matter what coin you want to do. Monero, the antivirus guys are coming out with Matrix, right? That placeholder token is available on Solana. There is something to do here around this eclipse crisis. So like I said, accumulating good stuff and possibly, like I said, pushing the F back. Now here's Peter Schiff just using his Giga platform to scare everybody now. Trying to get this so our friends on TikTok can maybe see it. The main difference between the 2026 financial crisis and 2008, other than the fact that this will be much worse, is that it won't be global. The rest of the world will actually benefit as the burden of supporting the U.S. consumer economy will be lifted. I guess that means our debt's going to blow up. I think that's a nice way of saying it. And, we love you too, Pete, but it can't be ignored that if gold crosses 5,000 and silver crosses 100 and bond markets don't trade well, today could be a preview. You have to hope and think Bitcoin holds. In some ways, like I keep saying, I wonder if DIRECTOR is what's called a negative beta hedge. This is very risky and borderline insane. Have seen it a couple times. So if the crypto market goes down, I've seen the crypto market down with DIRECTOR up. So like a 1 to 2% hedge. And of course, Toby's going to tell you, when Bitcoin gets boring, do memes. But at the end of the day, you want to be grabbing Bitcoin. You don't want to be selling it at 88 because it's going to 78. Trust me, I looked at it and I freaked out. And I'm like, oh my God. A lot of times when the legacy guy in me panics, that's the bottom. That's good. I hope it's true. But I don't think this thing with the debt is going away in front of the eclipse. And even if it does, you may have spillover into equities because the Magnificent Seven is still way overvalued. Other equities, maybe not. But those stocks are ridiculous, and those stocks have been getting absolutely hammered over the last couple of days. Absolutely hammered. Seeing a statistic here, speaking of how great everything is, I saw the list of all the great accomplishments of the administration. The average age of a new hire is age 42. It's almost like everybody under the age of 40 doesn't even exist, which is why the Bitcoins and the Zcashes and the Moneros of the world, right? In addition, because some of the privacy primer that we put in Patreon for the $25 tip is a huge thing. We put like a privacy handbook in Patreon, $25 tier. That, yeah, you know, Bitcoin and Monero, Zcash and Monero are like core holdings, but the actual beta on the upside, the actual asymmetric upside may be in the smaller coins. So it's very ironic. You know, you have this risk-off environment. You have this very scary thing going on, but this may represent a 30-day period to start accumulating some of this stuff that could fly, because that includes, you know, like I said, we can't give away all the coins now because we're doing all that tomorrow morning for our VIP customers. But I don't see how disgust is not going to be the end byproduct of the process between now and the eclipse. In other words, whatever happens between now and the eclipse, you'll be disgusted. You also might be worried because, you know, I personally think this Greenland thing is a distraction. I talked to somebody in Europe today, and they're acting like World War III is imminent over there. I think it's Taco, right? Like, he's just going to chicken out and not do it. I mean, they eventually have to acquire Greenland peacefully, but that's not the issue. That's not the issue, right? Boris says people in Minnesota are pushing back. You got a little social disorder going on. Again, this is all making Ray Dalio look like a total genius. You know, I like to push back and give that guy a hard time. Not anymore. Not anymore. Because this is clearly an issue, because we're going to find out who the Silicon Valley Bank is. And of course, when we do, that's going to be time for Bitcoin. That could be time for the whole crypto ecosystem. It's just a question of what do you do in the next 30 days, right? So Kevin Spence says, you are an idiot. Yes, sir, that is possible. When you're on TV and you talk every day and you have to give people guidance, every once in a while, you are going to get Jim Cramered. You are going to say up and it's going to go down, or you're going to say down and it's going to go up. It's part of the hazard of talking every day. So in order to do this job and in order to invest or take risk, you have to be willing to be an idiot. And trust me, I care about what people think. I shouldn't, but I do. I think everyone does. But Bitcoin at 88K, whether I'm an idiot or not, I would rather be a bullish idiot between 88 and 78 in Bitcoin and hang on for a much, much better day, either in the summer or at the end of the year, because there's no way corporations and banks, corporations can spend indiscriminately on certain components of AI with no return to shareholders in the short term without that having a consequence. In other words, Magnificent Seven spent too much money. You cannot have the only form of software that cannot be replicated by a chatbot, that would be the Bitcoin network, sitting unappreciated, hammered for very long. Yeah, too long for us crypto heads. I get it. But it can't stay that way. It can't. It won't. So even if they hammer this thing, trust me, no matter what I or any coin looks like, there is a dramatic opportunity happening here. because this is what you waited for, right? I was talking to a bunch of silver people 5 years ago, sitting around. Those are nice people. Then they got all like nasty. One lady was getting $400,000 worth of silver back then delivered to her house. And another nice lady looks at me and goes, I can't wait until the banks fail. I'm like, wow, that's really aggressive. Well, guess what? We're here. We're here because there's no question. There's no doubt in my mind that either because of the silver squeeze, the gold squeeze, or what's going on in the bond markets, somebody is going to blow up. Somebody is going to blow up. And to me, that smells like a Fed rescue, which is another thing to look forward to in the future while we deal with whatever happens now. Okay. Hopefully, my hope is last night, whatever was going to go on in the Japanese government bond market was kind of like maybe the climax of it all. That was just somebody puking and getting out. There's another chapter of that. Then you're going to have more consternation. You know, the only thing in my mind that's a buy on the board is Bitcoin, privacy, and if you want to take a shot at a small cap of your choice. Because if Bitcoin just sits here, something will move. I want to do the director manipulation protest trade. That's what I want to do. We'll see if that works. Okay, let's go to some more live TA, some 4-hour charts. Okay, so when we start looking at things like Zcash, now this has been an extended correction since 500, and we're headed for DeMark math where there should be a 13 and a 9 bottom. You should see a bounce in Zcash in the next 2 days. If you do, terrific. If you don't, the market's got major problems. It's the same thing with Monero. I mean, do you realize that you may wind up getting Monero close to 450, which is where it started the year? I know I said this already, but they washed everybody out, right? And we haven't even talked about coins like Solana, where I'm sure the price action may be very similar. I mean, they've taken out almost the entire year. Now, the bad news about Solana is on the 4-hour chart, there's no sign of a bottom. I don't see the bottom necessarily in the big altcoins. If anything, this looks like another 4 days. So I can't even look at this. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're breaking moving averages, and you could have 4 more days of this, and it's just like yuck. So if you don't have a bottom in these coins in the next, say, 24 to 48 hours, you know, you just have to keep an eye on all this macro noise. Because I can tell you, like, the best way to get attention on crypto YouTube or crypto, anything crypto in general, is just talk about silver, because I think the up-only nature of silver has got all the eyeballs. Okay. Andy says director is going to implode. Memes can implode. I said that. Every day that goes by that it doesn't, I mean, because it happened in all the other big coins, you know, and if it happens in that one, fine. I mean, it's not fine. That's why, you know, you want to define how much you want to put in and then put in half as much. But if that thing ever started to accelerate, there's got to be a bull market somewhere. If we have to sit and look at Bitcoin in the 80s for another month at best, we got to find another trade, man. We got to find another trade. That and the privacy coins we will be discussing on the YouTube member area. John Legend says tariffs are beautiful. One thing I do like about the United States is that the United States is asserting itself finally. Are we asserting ourselves on the right thing? Naturally, that depends on what part of the world you live in. You know, if you live in Greenland, you're probably scared. If you're in Venezuela, you're probably equally scared with our Navy, 25% of our Navy off your coast. For me, I didn't get crypto as a growth industry. I got crypto as a pump and dump. One day I would love to find a crypto or an idea in crypto that's not an all the way up, all the way down. I would really like that. Okay. I'd like to welcome all of our YouTube members who are here. We will definitely be doing all kinds of live TA and stuff tomorrow. You know, we have things like the Innovation Game down 12%. And dude, like I was telling everybody, this is like Bitcoin. The worst thing to do in crypto is to sit in a range and wait. And that's just what's happening, right? It goes up, everyone thinks it looks good, and then it goes back down again. I know a guy who's short from 126, and the guy went on vacation. He's not covering. He's not covering. He's done. So right now, I mean, those guys, they look like geniuses because every time it goes up, it fails. I mean, I don't think that's a bullish or a bearish statement. I think that that's just facts, right? And that sucks. And that's what's got me looking for trades elsewhere. And if I get rugged, I get rugged. But what are you going to do to push back? Sit around and go, well, I didn't push back because I was going to get rugged? What are you going to do? You know, you got rugged a year ago. Seriously. We got rugged a year ago, and nobody seems to have a problem with that. Kind of a year later, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with the powers that be hosing me. I'm tired of it. So this director coin is out there. The company's got some, you know, they got control of it. Let's see what happens. And then, of course, there's the ultimate director is the privacy narrative, right? It's two themes, right? Privacy and scarcity. Director is a little incubator in a little test tube in a petri dish type of thing, right? If it grows out to become a monster, great, because those other two coins did too. We'll see, right? And Bitcoin is obvious. Okay, so Aave, again, has the 50-day moving average problem. These solvent DeFi products, there's all this yap about the Clarity Act that they want to make the banks happy. You know what? I'm going to tell you something. I would like the Clarity Act to not bring back Gensler. So it prevents Gensler from ever coming back and shutting it all down. But I'm okay with leaving a little bit of the cyberpunk in crypto. Don't make it all legal. Like when Coinbase walked away from the bargaining table on this and made the orange man furious. Furious. Right? Because, you know, he's trying to do a crypto bill that the banks like. What a surprise that the mega donors are getting their way with the current administration. I'm shocked. Still, if they leave a little bit out, yeah, that's risk. But crypto's done just fine in the past with that risk. Leave a little bit of the cyberpunk in there. Right? This says I'm buffering. Let me take the video quality down. So maybe there'll be less buffering. Okay, let's welcome who's here. We have Flying Tiger in the house. Welcome. Right, we have YouTube members, Cisco Wolf, Bull Runner, a longtime viewer and friend, Thomas, Joey, Shelly Farmer Allen. Welcome. Big fan of those reports in Patreon Platinum. Man, that's some of the best stuff I've ever done. It's just incredible. And it goes to slides and everything. So you have like preferred medium. If you like to read the book, read the book. If you want the Cliff Notes, you get the Cliff Notes. If you want the slideshow, it's got the slideshow with the coins right on it. Joey Moriano, welcome. Thoughts on XDC? Man, I really wanted these American cryptos. Really, really, really wanted it. Well, I mean, what I would have to say about this is a give up trade, right? This is the horrid thing about environments like this, is that if this is good, this is a give up trade. And this is also an example of what can happen when you have a failed rally at something like the 50-day moving average. It looks like it's breaking out. It doesn't. And then everyone gives up. This is a very serious, legit concern I have. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope we don't have to deal with this. I hope the 50-day moving average doesn't mean anything. You know, I hate these failed rallies. Again, I would love to see Bitcoin just go back into a range, because all the reasons that they'll buy silver above 100 and gold above 5K are reasons to buy Bitcoin. And I don't subscribe to this whole idea, because I never subscribed to the idea that the U.S. should dump all of its gold to buy Bitcoin. I never subscribed to that. Saylor was into that. I was like, no, that's wrong, because it's all the same trade. Right now, it's obvious everybody wants to, like, you know, dump the Bitcoin to buy gold. I don't think that's right either. I really don't. I think they've both got upside for very specific reasons. And I don't think you can have a sovereign debt meltdown without privacy, Bitcoin, and maybe some kind of protest trade. Maybe. I mean, Bitcoin is the ultimate protest trade, to be honest. Zcash as private, or at least Bitcoin where they're attempting a privacy feature, right? Zepetis is reminding you to please hit the like button. TC Crypto is a Spartan kernel. Gavin Busby hammering away with those late night McAfee and tequila emojis, which you get if you're a YouTube member. Chillaxin, John Legend, welcome. Tech Severe, Proud American. Time to get your hands on some silver. Hold something physical that actually has a leverage against a lot of these markets. It's like slapping the face of the man. And they're not done slapping. They're not. Silver takes out 96. I'm going to be hiding under my desk. We all are. And Besson and Powell and all these characters, they're going to have to pay attention. This is another thing. I'm not going to go massively macro heavy. But if the Japanese lose control and that starts spilling over into other markets, we're going to have to get off Greenland and we're going to have to get on QE, basically. I mean, that's kind of the way it happens, right? Gold moves out of fear, and then the policy response comes in, the printing, and that's what moves Bitcoin, right? Stefan Wilhelm, his low for Bitcoin this year is 50K. Right? There are a lot of people talking about that. There are. Will the Orange Man get impeached? Well, that's if they have the other side has complete control of Congress. I don't think there's any point in impeaching the Orange Man, because you're going to get Vance, and Vance is owned by the same people. Worse. You're not getting anything different. A different Twitter profile, but it's not a different group of guys controlling him. So my answer would be no. My answer would be no. Right? They would just try to block everything that he's doing, because it didn't work the first two times. All it did was make him stronger and bolder. I mean, that's part of what you have here with this guy. That's why he thinks he can issue a meme coin and get away with it. That's why he's taking over other countries. He doesn't care. He was going to Rikers Island. Go to a chat bot and say, show me some pictures of Rikers Island. That's where he was going. He was convicted, right? Special interests got him out of there. And why would he care? He doesn't. This is what people don't get. He's going to get what he wants. Question is he going to get himself a bond market problem that he's not fully aware of yet, or at least he's not acting aware of? Undoubtedly, it's got, this Japanese thing last night. I mean, just so you don't have to sit here and guess as to what I'm talking about. I mean, there's an organic correction going on today, and hopefully that was it. But I mean, my God, this is the yield on the 30-year Japanese bond, and you're like, yeah, well, I'm in altcoins. That doesn't mean anything, dude. Dude, this is a system shaker. When this happens, somebody blew up. We just don't know who it is yet. We don't know who it is. And silver is not down, and gold is moving through 4,800. you know, Bitcoin does join this trade eventually. It does. You know, that's why there's no need. That's why you need to be aware, but there's no need to get hysterical. I still think, especially with Monero and Zcash unwinding the whole year, the question is, how do you push back? How do you push back? Because I know Toby's not going to give up. I mean, you can tune in for the podcast tomorrow to get the details, and I would encourage you to do so. But I know Toby's not going to be packing it in, and I can read all this government bond disaster stuff to her, and she's just like, whatever, dude. Whatever. You get Bitcoin in the 80s, you hoover that up, and you sit there with it. And I don't disagree. I don't. Just a question of how much stupidity or manipulation or whatever you're going to have to put up with. I mean, if Bitcoin ever went down to the 70s, in my mind, that would be people, that's just big players legally just trying to push it down to get everyone to panic so they can get a monster liquidity event right after the eclipse. Like I said, who's in charge here? October 10th, who was in charge? Who wrecked your P&L? Who wrecked your altcoins? Who wrecked the market for the whole fourth quarter? The people who should, McAfee's right. The people who should be in charge, that's you, the people. The Declaration of Cryptocurrency Independence, right? The Matrix token, which I can't wait to help them promote when they get that built, right? It's like privacy DeFi Monero on steroids. I mean, this is inevitable. And they just marked it all down for you, as painful as it may be for your P&L. Coin-operated BZAC text servers. Huckleberry native, a Spartan kernel. Printer goes brrr. I don't see any other way to stop the Japanese government bond market. Matter of fact, the Fed may have to start buying that stuff. There's nothing they can do about it. They've obviously just let it go. They don't care. They're like most Americans with their credit cards after Christmas. They're like, what? See ya. See ya. Can't stop it. Somebody's going to blow up. We'll put them in receivership. Thank you for coming in. That sounds nice now, but it could be much scarier later. Because as I talked to one bond market guy tonight, I don't see what stops that. I don't see what stops it. All right. Grandpa Keeter, everyone is digging the new time slot. It's nice to see you, sir. TC Crypto, the time rocks. Welcome, Shizzy Unchained. Is it me, or does this feel like January of 2020? Oh my God, dude. That's even too scary for a macro head like me. However, it's not wrong. You know, Japanese government bond market year end is March. I think it happens before the eclipse, around the eclipse. I think by the time March comes, it's, well, again, it's in Patreon Platinum. You know, there is a lot of opportunity here. There is. Even though it's gross and you're miserable. I'm trying to find the, you know, Frank Martin wants to know if you want to do we want to do Fartcoin? Okay. Well, my attitude on Fartcoin is this, and it's with any of these memes. I have thought for a long time that Fart is moved by like an algo. And for whatever reason, I'm not seeing it here. There we go. So Fart looks like anything else. You know, it's been hammered. It tried to get through the 50-day and couldn't make it. I think these meme coins need supply control. They need supply control, or they need an algorithm that pushes it. Fartcoin has always had, I think, an algo. SPX 6900 definitely had an algo ramp it back in the day. That did not ramp itself. That was a big cap meme coin. So you either have that or you have supply control. The only way retail can move something is if you have total supply control and then you have one or two big players jump in and get a move going. Which, frankly, again, Bitcoin, privacy coins, And director, as someone noted, could be one trade away from going to 800,000 market cap, or it could be one trade away from going to 5 million. Because, you know, like, what meme coin makes you enthusiastic in this market? They tried it twice with things like Pippin and White Whale, but that stuff was too silly and they didn't have control over the supply. However, if you have something with a more serious edge, we'll see. We'll see. You know, what else is there to talk about except to be down in the mouth and be pro Bitcoin and pro privacy? I mean, that's not nothing. But I'm feeling the need to push back because I'm not happy. You know, one guy said I'm an idiot. I'm actually angry. I'm actually angry that a year after, you know, we were so hopeful, this is what we get. A bond market crisis and Ray Dalio and Peter Schiff laughing at us. Well, I say we take the privacy coins and Bitcoin, and when the time comes, and any other protest coin, and we just moon it all one day. Okay. We bide our time between now and this eclipse, because eclipses can create reversals. So in some small way, you know, it can magnify a trend, which is what's going on in silver, and it can create reversals when the time comes. So if all coins in Bitcoin are down when that eclipse rolls around, that to me smells like a very chunky reversal. Our initial price targets off that reversal are in Patreon Platinum, and we will be discussing it tomorrow on the YouTube member podcast, along with all the other reasons to stop being a bearish ninny, courtesy of Toby Ward, along with some very interesting coin picks, some of which in the privacy sector, some of which in the world of AI infrastructure, because they started after Render, they started after Tau, they started after all this AI stuff early in the year, and now we're all acting like it's not happening because Magnificent 7 got hit. If Magnificent 7 gets hit, they're going to be looking to trade AI somewhere else. Too many people distracted by silver, thinking we're like commodities traders in the 80s. That's good. It's fun. It's nice, right? Peter Schiff's having a great time, but there's a bigger trade out there. There's privacy, Bitcoin, protest, and AI. Those are the 4 trades. Don't put anything into this market that you can't afford to vaporize. Don't come back to me and said XYZ vaporized. It can happen. It can also go to 50 million if you catch it right. Because if you want to protest manipulation and there's another 1010 or there's another whatever on this bond market fiasco, and even this Greenland thing could create a market catalyst. I don't want to go into that because I don't think that's going to, I don't think the YouTube algorithm is going to like it if I start talking about it. But we're in Black Swan season. We're in Black Swan season, and some of it is plain as Jane. Plain Jane, it's right there in front of you. It's not even a Black Swan because it's right there. It's just that, you know, you may actually get what you're looking at. And then back to Peter Schiff's point, to be honest, that was like 2008. I mean, you know, at some point in 2008, we could figure out that, man, there was something wrong. Silicon Valley Bank was the same way. Something was wrong, and something is wrong. Can that affect your crypto portfolio? Yes. Can that indiscriminately moon your crypto portfolio at some point in time? Yes. Yes. And you know, unfortunately, when it's down like this, you know, that's what you have to look at. Wonton man. Welcome, sir. Nicola, what do you think about Tau at 120 or 150 on a wick? Love it. Not investment advice. Okay. Someone's asking me how I feel about Pepe. Again, with the big memes, I'll give you the hint. The last thing I heard from Toby was that if she had to do a big meme, it was Doge. With any of these big memes, it's going to require retail participation. Pepe needs ETH to go up. Just saying. Personally, I like where your head is. I'm okay with Pepe. Mainly because I think one or two of these memes is going to be used as a form of money, right? New forms of money are going to be required when all this is said and done. At the end of the day, all the GAN work, all the Dahlia work, doesn't matter whose work it is, right? It's involving massive, sudden transformation, like the equivalent of the Berlin Wall falling in the financial markets. Like one day the wall was up and the next day the wall was down, period. That type of moment is coming. And when it does, you want to be long crypto. At a minimum, you don't want to allow yourself to get shaken out and get negative, because that's very easy to do given the price action. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is the market update for today. At the new later time, we will see you tomorrow.